down to. Awesome. So I got the Breadman. This is very exciting. Stephen Edwards. I've been a big fan of you for a very long time. I think that you are a very thoughtful and aware boxing coach, which is why I think it's going to be a good time asking you questions. First question actually isn't boxing though. First question. One thing I noticed in doing my research is you have two kids who are very heavily involved in sports, and the reason that comes back to me is because I have a son, who played travel league basketball, and it's extremely time consuming, takes a lot of energy. How do you balance those two things, being a trainer of all these big level fighters and being there involved in all the sports for your kids?
Um, like anything else, man, where there's a will, there's a way. You just figure it out. Um, my kids are my priority. I love my fighters, but my kids are my priority. So, I just make it my business. Like I don't miss an event uh if I can help it. Like, believe it or not, I'm flying home to Philly to watch my kids run in the CYO championships Thursday, and I'm coming back Friday morning for the weigh-in. And that's just what I have to do. So I don't really think about how I gotta balance it. I just think about it like I gotta be there for my kids no matter what. And you know, I miss some time away from them being in camp, and I'm actually gonna miss one of the events because the track meet is on a Thursday night, but one of the events is on a Saturday morning. So I'm gonna miss that because obviously that's the day of the fight. But anything that's not the day of a fight, uh, I'm I, I'm gonna be there, or I'm gonna try my best to be there, and it's just how it is. That's how it is. When you're in the middle of it, you don't really think about it in terms of like how you gotta balance it. I just know that I make a living training fighters, but being a father is a 24-hour, 365-day thing. So that's just is what it is.
How different, and this is me as a father asking, how different is it to, because your kids, I'm assuming you're coaching them quite a lot from the position you're in. How different is coaching your kids to be the best they can be versus like coaching, Caleb for his upcoming fight?
It's very similar, but you could be harder on your kids, to be honest with you. It's a little
Why is
because
that?
they're your kids, like you instill the discipline. Where a fighter, you may look at them as a son or a nephew or whatever, but they're not your kids. They're grown men. So you can't be as hard on them as you can be your children. You can say certain things to your children that you. And it's same with fighters. Like if you were with a fighter from when he was 19, 20 years old, you started him out. It's a little different than if you meet him at 30 years old. You know what I mean? Like you could be a little bit harder on him when you got him at a younger age. So it's the same thing. You just have to have a little bit of You just have to kind of operate in context of how you met them, how old they were, where they at, or whatever. I mean, you can't let a fighter walk over you, but
Yeah,
the way it's just there's a difference when you meet them at a different stage in their career.
totally. So, are there things that you would do to maybe say you meet a fighter when he's in his 30s versus like right from scratch in amateurs or he's a kid? Is there something you would do to break those boundaries down or like those barriers to sort of establish more of a connection?
Well, the connection kind of comes organically. The connection is going to be there, just the same way as in school. If you go to a high school reunion, there were certain people you were cool with. There are certain people you weren't cool with. It's the same as with a fighter. I let fighters know, like, they can't disrespect me. They can't say certain things to me. They have to be attentive. But, you have to be more considerate and you have to use a little bit more discretion when you meet them at a different standpoint in their career because they've gotten to a certain place without you. So you have to be a little bit more considerate, a little bit more open minded. For my children, I raised them. I procreated them. So like they can't tell me, well, we used to do it like this. How could they tell me that? You understand what I'm saying? But if you meet a fighter, he's 27, 28, and he's already a world champion, he could say, well, I used to do it like this. Can we try this, coach? So you got to be a little bit more flexible with some things. Not too flexible, because then you get to a point where they're training you and you're not training them. But
Absolutely.
I can be a lot harder on my kids. I just can be. Like, they don't feel like working out. Fighter is rich and he want to take the day off. I'm not going to argue with him. I'm going to say, all right, take the day off. Go ahead. My kids, I'm gonna say get your ass out there and go do what you're supposed to do. Because dad's not gonna be paying for these AAU Junior Olympics if you're not in the best shape. And dad's not gonna become emotionally and financially invested in you if you lollygagging. So, my kids gotta do certain things. Get up, do your core work, do your recovery. Fighters, I'm very hard on my fighters too, but you know, um uh sometimes fighters start pushing back. You know, I'll give you an example. I trained Julian Williams from he was like 19, 20, all the way up to he's 35 years old. Our relationship changed over time. It was things I could say to him when he was 20, I couldn't say to him anymore when he was 33, 34. He would push back. And that's okay. You know what I mean? Like, that's all right. I don't yeah, I'm not one person like my word is the absolute. Like I'm God, but there's just different. Like I could be like, Joel, this dude coming to kill you, bro. Let's get up 5 o'clock in the morning. He get up. I swear to God, he get up. You know what I mean? And it just it's when I say change, I don't mean to say it, and I don't want anybody to misconstrue me saying it in a bad way, but it's just different the way you deliver it. There's just a different like when you even fighters at a younger age, like they don't have a like my fighters that I raised in the gym, they don't have a choice on who they spar. They
Yeah.
spar, tell them to spar. But when you get a fighter's little bit, that's established, he may have a certain system where he spars a certain way. But the fighters that I got that I started out, they spar who I tell them to spar. We don't have them conversations. It's the same with my kids. Like your workout is your workout. My daughter is
When
really good on track, but she got her period about a year
oh
ago.
Jesus.
So she
Yeah.
might say, Dad, my stomach hurt. Like, all right, well, what are you gonna do? The girl in the world has a period. So are you not going to be the best because you have stomach pains, or are you going to work?
I,
Where as a fighter that's being paid, that's making millions of dollars, what I do is I say to them what I think is right or wrong, and then I let them be. Because when I was coming up as a trainer earlier in my career as a trainer, I found myself arguing and fighting too much for what I knew to be right. So now I just say it and I get a fighter the choice. He could do what he could do what he think is right. At the end of the day, he pays me, but I tell him what I think. And if he don't want to do it, then that's fine. And if it gets to a point where it's jeopardizing my brand or the performance or whatever, then I got a choice where I could walk away or I could ride it out with him. But I don't fight. I don't use too many. I don't lose brain cells anymore the way that I did when I first started training fighters. I first started training fighters 2010, 2011. I would lose brain cells on arguing. Hey man, you got to do this. Hey man, you got to get your sleep. Hey man, you got to stay away from women. Hey man, you got to eat this way and that way. And honestly, it burnt me out a little bit. You know what I mean? It burnt
yeah.
me out a little bit mentally. It made me a little bit sour. So as I've gotten a little bit older, I've evolved to a point where I'll be like, okay, here's what I think. And if they say I want to do it a different way, go ahead, do it your way. You know what I
Do
mean?
you
But
list the consequences at least if they don't want to
sure,
listen? Do you say, okay, you don't have to. However, this is what you're going to deal with. Like so
sure.
they at least.
Listen, sure. Because one thing about me is I'm not afraid to lose my job. You know what I mean? Like I don't have a problem with saying that, but what I'm not going to do is fight and argue about it. That's what I don't do no more. I don't go back and forth with a guy no more. The only way I'll go back and forth with a fight is if he disrespect me, and then I'll probably just not train with him no more. But once I
Yeah.
tell them something and they give me their idea about it, I'll be like, okay, no problem.
I want to take a step back because one cool thing you said is like, listen, if someone wants to push back, I'm all ears. I can take that criticism and maybe it's good feedback. Have you had a situation where someone pushed back on you and gave feedback and you thought, yeah, that's a good idea?
Not in the context that I think you're saying, and no. Like it may be like I'll see that the opponent favors a certain shot, and I'll say, hey, I want you to counter it like this. And then the fighter may say, I think it might be easier, it might come off a little better if I counter it like that. That'll be the hardest pushback I'll get. And to
Yeah,
be honest with you, uh that's about the toughest pushback I'll get but I'm open to that because your muscle memory, everybody's not going to counter a punch the same exact way. So your muscle memory might be a little bit different with certain things, and it may be different than what I may think you should counter it with. You know what I mean? So, and in that aspect, I'll say you tell me the punch you're more comfortable countering with, and they'll show me, and then we'll just work on that punch on the pad. It just happened in this camp with Kyrone Davis. I told him it was a punch that I want him to counter with, and Caleb and Julian Williams would have countered it with a particular shot.
sure.
Kyrone wanted to counter it with a different shot, and I said okay, and we just worked on the shot that he wanted to counter it with. It wasn't an argument or anything like that. That kind of stuff is like to me. Um,
Yeah,
would that I'm not a coach that's going to argue over something like that. What I'll argue, what I'll have an issue with is, hey man, I want you to box, let's say, 15 to 20 rounds a week, and a guy's telling me, well, I only need about 7 or 8 rounds a week, or hey man, I think you should run 3 or 4 days a week. You should do some sprints. No, I like to run twice a week and I want to run 8 or 9 miles. If it gets to that point, then I'll be like, you know what? I'm probably not the guy for you. You probably need
yeah,
to know, you know, hey man, I think that you should uh box this guy. And he says, no, I think I should step to him. I'll say, okay, well, show me in the gym that you could step to a guy. Because
yeah,
I want us to have uh solidarity. I want us to be together. I don't want to be screaming from my seat, the box, and you brawling, because then the judges are going to think that you're not doing what I want you to do. So if you could show me in the gym that you could fight him the way you see fit, then I will conform to the way you want to fight the guy. And yeah, I mean that's just where it's at. I haven't had those issues. Honestly, the person I had those issues the most with is Julian Williams. He's the person that I
oh,
have particular issue the most with as far as what style he should fight. Um, and it's funny because Nazem Richardson warned me that that was going to be a problem with him. He said that he can do too many things, and the problem with him is choosing which thing to do on the right night to do it on. And Julian gives a lot of pushback on the style that he should fight. And there was often times where I would want him to box and then he would want to brawl, and that's just what it was. It's not a bad thing. He has a right to see it the way he wants to see it, but that's the biggest problem I've had with him. With Kyrone is kind of Kyrone can fight a lot of different styles too, but we haven't had that problem. To that extent. I've told Kyrone to do some different game plans, and he was compliant with them. And actually, like the Darrell game plan was a game plan that Kyrone never had used before, and he went out and did it, and I was very pleasantly surprised with it. With Caleb pretty much fights the way that I need him to fight. He showed the new wrinkle in the McCumbee fight. I was happy with that. I got some kids back at home where they kind of fight in a certain way where they're a little bit more militant. Whatever I tell them to do, they'll do it. So I got them
yeah,
real young kids, and they fight. They might not have the versatility that Kyrone, Julian, and Caleb have. So they fight, and it's I want to say better, but it's easier to train them because they're militant. Like if I got this one kid, whatever I say, he'll just do it because he's just it's his personality and it's his style. You know, he's a big, strong, rugged, hard punching, crazy athletic kid, and I just kind of just go with him. You know, so that's a little bit easier for me. But I'm here for all of the challenges. Every fighter is different, and you got to be able to know what buttons to push with each guy. As far as pushback, to be honest with you, um,
I'd imagine success. I'm not saying this about them. I would never badmouth, but this is any human being. It's very hard when you become successful to not be like, "Hey, I know what I'm doing. I got this."
sure it
It's
is.
very
And
hard.
some of the things that make a fighter good is being stubborn and being strong-willed, and those same things come back to bite them in certain areas, or not so much to bite them, but things that can cause a little bit of an adversarial relationship with their trainers. But it's never like overwhelming to me. You know what I mean? Because I will like all of them know like if I start getting upset, not that I'm like they should be scared of me or nothing, but if I get like super aggravated, they know like to chill out. But they're good kids. They're good kids in their own way. You just gotta you just gotta know how to push the buttons. You know how to know when to push. You gotta know when to pull. You gotta know when to kind of let them be on their own. Karan told me something deep in this camp, and I agreed with him. I can't really. I don't know if I should say it before the fight, but he sparred a little bit differently this camp than what he normally does. And like he started out the camp in a certain way, like he normally does, and then he kind of like. And then one day I said to him, I said to him, so I said, "Yo, man, what's up with that?" And uh, I'll say he said, "I'm tired of being the middleweight champion of the world in the gym." He's like, "I'm all right. I'm just working on a couple of little things that you want me to work on. I'm landing the shots that you want me to, but I'm just." And I said, "Okay, I understand that." He said, "I don't have no injuries. I want to be smart. I went into the Garcia fight with an injury. I went into a lot of these fights with injuries, and I don't need no injuries going into this fight." And I said, "Okay," and that was it. It wasn't any pushback. It wasn't anything. It wasn't any arguments, anything, because he said it in a respectful way. Like it was like I said, "Okay, no problem," and that was the end of it. We didn't talk about it anymore.
How how much of a guy knowing his own body is like something to listen to versus a guy, and I'm not saying this about him, but just out loud, because guys get older, their bodies deceive them a little bit more. They have more injuries. How much do you have to listen to that, and they could tell you, like giving the feedback from their body versus shirking responsibilities, and how do you siphon through
Man,
that?
that's a good question because I deal with that with my kid and I deal with that with fighters where you gotta kind of like ascertain like, are you a little sore? You're supposed to be a little sore, or are you injured or you beat and you can't work? If you're a little sore, you need to go to the gym. You know what I mean? If you're injured or you're completely depleted, you may need a rest day. And it comes with knowing the fighter. It really does. Like, uh, there's a fighter I train at home named Romel Cruz. He don't ask for no days off. He just don't. And I'm not saying this to, show other fighters up. He don't ask for a day off. Never. If he asks me for a day off, I know that he's not feeling well. I know that he's beat down. I know that his body is at a different place because he don't do that. You know, uh, but he's at a different stage in his life. He hasn't made the money yet either. So his hunger level is different. You
Yeah,
know, there's a fighter that I train at home named Ron Peterson. Unless it's like a family situation where, because he has like 6 kids, but unless it's one of them situations, he don't ask for days off. You know what I mean? Other guys, they'll ask for days off because they've had injuries. They don't want to pull out of a fight. They don't want to blow 7-figure paydays. So they be like, yo, Steve, coach, Brad, I need a day off. And I'll say, okay. Now, sometimes I'll be like, yo, you just took off, man. Come on, let's work. And it depends, you know what I mean? But I got a good delivery and I'm very respectful to fighters. So it rarely gets to that point where, you know, um, where we arguing or fighting over it. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, they pay me. So if they want to keep taking off and we go to the fight, like, okay. But I'm the type of trainer, I'll look at a guy. If you start dragging a little bit or your response times are low, I'll give you a day off without you having to ask me. You know what I mean? I'm gonna say, hey man, take off. There's no big deal. Take off. Go get some recovery. Go reboot. Go hang out with your kids. Like, let's say we're not gonna be training on the weekend. Let's say they're off on Saturday and Sunday a particular week. I may tell them to take off on Friday. I may say take off on Friday and see how good you feel. Don't do nothing on Friday. Just take off. So you'll have a 3-day weekend and you'll come back and you'll be revitalized on Monday. So I like to shock a guy and surprise them and do that for them. You know what I mean? But if they're the kind of guy that's always going to take his own days off, then it's
Yeah.
hard for me to do that because we both can't do it. We're going to be working 3-day work weeks. So it just depends on the fighter. But they got to listen to their body. But I also observe their body. I'll observe certain things. And something that Julian Williams used to teach me, and I refer to him a lot because he was the first fighter I ever trained,
Yeah.
and he used to come in the gym. He would get headaches and not feel well, and then he would have a great day. And then one day he said, "Man, sometimes you can make your worst day your best day if you just push through." And I said, "You're right. So stop coming in the gym telling me about how your headaches and how sick you feel and just work." And because it kind of it gives me a little bit of anxiety when the guy tell me he don't feel well, and then I got to work the crap out of him. So I said, stop
Yeah.
telling me that. Just work through it. If you're gonna train, train. You know, and it was a good learning experience for me because Kyrone is like Julian's little brother. So one day Kyrone wasn't having a good day in sparring a few years ago. We was getting ready for the Durrell fight, and we were supposed to box 10 rounds. And I said, man, you look flat today, man. Let's cut it. He said, nope. I'm gonna push through because I might not be having a good day in the fight, and I still got to win. I got to make a bad day a good day. And he went out there and he fought his ass off for the last 3 rounds of the sparring session. I was super proud of him. And these things are all relative to everything because last year my daughter was having horrible stomach pains, horrible, and she was running in the Archdiocese CYO Championships, which is a big deal. These records get archived forever, and she ran in the 100-meter trials, and she was literally outside on the ground laying there. And I'm like, damn. She like, Dad, I can't run. And I said, well, you don't run again for an hour. Let's not make the decision right now. Let's
Yeah.
relax. Let's take our time. Let's relax. Let's say a prayer. Breathe a little bit. Stay out here away from people. Our, my wife, her mother, jogged to a drugstore, got some medicine for her stomach, came back. She went out there and ran 3 archdiocese records, 3 fastest times in her age group ever in the history of the city. And I said, you see what you did? You turned your worst day into your best day. Had you reacted on emotion and walked away and not ran the day because you had a stomach ache, then you wouldn't be archived in the city record. See what you did? And she smiled. So I learned a lesson many years ago from Julian because Julian, I never forget he said that to me. He said, man, sometimes when you make me box, when you make me keep working, when I don't feel well, that be my best day. Sometimes you take your best day when you're feeling your worst. And it always stuck in my mind. So, I don't have a lot of sympathy when a fighter tell me that they're not feeling well that day. Because there's a difference between not feeling well, being hurt, or being actually injured where you can't box. Not feeling well to me is not enough because you may wake up the day of the fight and don't feel your best and you still got to fight and perform. So when a fighter tell me that they don't feel well, I mean, I don't argue with them. I'd be like, all right, cool, no problem. But I know that you could go out and perform if you got a little headache or you're a little drained from working or just whatever. You know what I mean? Nobody feels great every day in camp. I don't feel great every day in camp. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? That don't mean that I'm not gonna come to the gym. So when a fighter tells me that, I'll say, okay, no problem. But I know that you can still go out there and work if you're not feeling well. You know what I mean? I know for a fact. I got a kid named Ron Peterson that delivers trash, bro. I mean, dumps trash. He works from 10 at night to 6 in the morning. He dumps trash. I know a lot of times in the gym he don't feel well. But guess what? He in the gym every day early because he understand what the end goal is. You know what I mean? It's
That's
a tough sport. It's not.
that's
It's not for the
rough.
faint of heart. It's not. It's not for if you got any kind of uncompromising spirit in you. I'm not saying you can't make it in boxing, but it will show up. You know what I mean? It's not for the faint of heart. It's just not. You got to push through so much stuff in this sport. You know, you got to have special level character to make it. Uh, especially be like truly, truly great. You have to.
When you want to implement a new style with a guy, like one thing we all notice is, it's like that Tyson line, everyone has a plan until they get hit. And you see it a lot. You'd see it with like, you think of like an Arturo Gatti. He might box for like a round, but if he starts getting hit, he's going to like pull that fire alarm and just let him loose. A lot of fighters will go back to what works for them. If you say, hey, try to get on the inside and they get hit coming on the inside, their default is like, okay, I box on the outside. I'm gonna go back to what worked. Is that is it dangerous, or has it ever backfired against you to be like, hey, let's change the style up. This approach is going to work, and then they get hit, and suddenly, like, how do you keep them in that mind state to stick with the plan, or do you?
Uh, I got this thing. I got a voice that carries. I'm sure you know.
Yeah.
And um, when Julian Williams was fighting Nathaniel Gallimore, he won the first 3 rounds easy. He lost rounds 4 and 5 and 6 on a couple of the judges' scorecards. Not so much that Gallimore was beating him up, but because he started brawling and I was telling them to box. So what I did that fight was I changed my whole approach. I start telling them stay on the inside, keep squeezing them, keep massaging him, keep squeezing them, keep massaging them, keep grinding them out on the inside because I knew he wasn't going to box again. I know him really well, so I knew he wasn't going to box no more. Once he got into that mode, he got a little tired. The guy was a big puncher. And Julian got a big, big heart. You know, his heart is much bigger than his brain. To be totally honest with you,
Yeah.
you know, so his natural inclination is to fight. So I didn't get on him no more because for 3 rounds I was telling him to box and he wouldn't do it. So I was just said, "Fuck it." Excuse me, sorry. I
Joe,
said,
good.
"Forget it." I'll just tell him take this guy on the inside and do because Gallimore had extremely long arms. I was like, okay, let's just go on the inside, man. He ain't gonna listen no more. And I just start coaching from there. Out of my fighters that I've had, it's happened with him so many times I can't count. Like he can box his ass off, but he's just a guy that likes to mix it up. And sometimes it come back to bite us. Sometimes it don't. It just depends on the fight. It depends on the opponent. You know what I mean? But fighters are what they are. You know what I mean? So like I don't like it doesn't even upset me no more. After that fight, I think it was in 2018. I just learned to just say, all right, we just going. I'm just gonna go. I'm gonna flow with you instead of chastising them and berating them in the corner, so the announcers and the judges can hear me, and then they're gonna take credit away from them anyway. I'll just flip it and just do what I see you doing. I'll coach according to you. Okay, you want to be in here grinding with him? Let's see it. I'll coach according to that. It's not like he can't fight on the inside and can't do it. I just thought the fight would be easier if he boxed. So when that happens to me, sometimes it bites us, sometimes it don't. But you know, I'm a flexible. I'm very compromising and flexible when it comes to that. Because at the end of the day, they're feeling the punches. Now, if
Yep.
you're fighting away and you're losing and you're getting your butt beat and you're still doing it, that's gonna make me upset. You know what I mean? That'll make me upset. But you know. If you holding your own, fighting the style that I didn't agree with, I'll I'll be fast to change my approach.
Most definitely. So one thing you said before, and if I misquote this, correct me, man. I don't want to get it wrong, but it's basically like boxing 75% mental. It's a very very mental game. I also had heard you mention Terrence Crawford. He can do this at an older age because he's, and if I misquote it, correct me please, but I think it's because he was so mentally sharp. He has that mental toughness and sharpness. I've heard that so much in boxing. I want to dissect that a little bit. What does that mean to be that
Um,
mentally tough?
I'm
Like, what
not.
is he doing?
I think you misquoted me about Crawford. He obviously has mental sharpness and toughness, but there's a lot of guys that have mental toughness that can't fight, at an advanced age. I think Crawford's style age as well because his adaptability and his mind as far as processing really fast and as far as his IQ and as far as him understanding how to win without like giving a piece of himself in the win. Like for as good as Crawford is, right? And all of the knockouts that he has, have we ever seen him in a war where you look at him after the fight and say, I don't know if he's gonna be the same after this fight? He hasn't given you that fight
No.
yet. And that's why I said he has a style to age as well because he's so smooth and his mind is so sharp as far as processing what's going on in the ring because the mind lasts longer than the body. So even if he's not at his exact physical peak, which he's probably not at 37, he's still in his prime because his mind processes so well and he understands how to fight that smooth fight without being so just rigid and taking so much punishment and having to give up so much of himself just to get a win. Fighters, I'll give you an example. Josh Taylor. Josh Taylor was a guy I was really high on, but he can't win a fight now because everything he does is so hard. He's a 5'10", 5'11", junior welterweight, and he has a pretty good punch and he has some good boxing skills, but everything is so hard and so rugged and so emotional when he fight. He's pretty much burnt himself out and he can't get a win at the top level anymore. He hasn't won a fight in like 3 or 4 years because everything he does is so hard. So
Yeah.
certain styles they don't age well. Big punching heavyweights age well, and cerebral fighters with smart minds that can beat you with their mind as well as their fists, they age well. So Crawford has the kind of style that age well. It doesn't make one better than the other one. I don't want to say that because some guys high peaks and they're young and they got to get out of the game, but you got to be careful with that. When you're talking about, like, I'll give you an example. Virgil Ortiz, I'm a big fan of his. I think he's an excellent fighter, but everything he does is so hard and rigid. The last fight he looked good against Madrimov. But if he doesn't smooth his game out a little bit, time he's 30, 31, people going to start looking at him and saying, damn, he's not the same no more. Everything is hard and fast and just head on collisions and just that style very rarely ages well. I'll say that. I'm not saying it can't because I don't like to talk in absolute terms because you always have outliers to every rule. But it's hard for that style to age well.
Also, that I just thought of something. Like the great fighters, maybe great's a big word for some of the guys I'll mention, but the guys who become big names and last for a long time, a lot of them, their style matures. It changes over time. Like you look at Floyd, he used to punch a lot, and he became much more cerebral. He got calmer as he got older. He just became calmer in the ring and more patient. Canelo, I think, is very similar. He just got a lot calmer as he got older. He used to be more aggressive. His defense got better. Um,
You, I don't mean to cut you off, but I'm gonna lose my train of thought if I don't say this right away.
yeah, yeah, go
You're
for it.
exact- you're exactly right, and it doesn't like you don't pick it up on a fight by fight basis. You have to like look at like Floyd in 2003, and then you look at him again in 2013. But if you look at him in 2003, if you look at his next fight, you won't pick it up there. It's a gradual evolution of their game. You know what I mean? It's very gradual. And Canelo's another one. All the greats that have longevity, they have that. It's a gradual evolution of their game. It's small little nuances and things that they weren't doing in their 20s that they do in their 30s that allow them to get better. It's like that in all sports, but especially boxing. But you're right. Crawford's game has evolved a little bit. Not as much as Floyd's, but his game has evolved a little bit. I've seen Crawford when he was younger. I actually think Crawford is better now. Crazy, right? I think he's better now. You know,
He
he's one of the
stays
rare
he
dudes that
stays in
got better.
shape though.
Yeah, he's one of the rare dudes that got better because his performance against Spence. Oh my God. I don't know if I don't want to say ever, but it's very rare that you see a guy fight a perfect fight in a super fight like that. And that was the best performance of his career. He was like 36. So,
He was yeah.
he was just on that night. But he's a rare guy. So he hasn't really evolved, I think, as far as changing his style as much as Floyd and Canelo. But I do see little things that he does now that he probably wasn't doing when he was fighting guys like Ricky Burns and stuff. I've been watching Crawford a long time because me and his trainers are really cool. Red Spikes and Bomac. I'm cool with them. Like I knew them before Crawford won the title, before Julian won the title. We used to all talk and just like they're my guys. I really got a lot of love for them guys. So I was watching Crawford for a long time. He's gotten better and more explosive and stuff now, but he hasn't evolved as much as say Floyd or Canelo did. I look at Floyd and Canelo, and Floyd fight totally different when he was younger. Like when he was fighting Gennaro Hernandez, he was, but somewhere along the way, his style but what makes him so special is they remain equally effective. The one thing that I do
Absolutely.
notice with Crawford is a little bit more patient for his knockouts.
Yeah,
Uh,
he's starting to pick his shots more. I mean, even against Errol Spence, like that shot
yeah,
when he
he's a
first dropped
little
him, it
bit
was
more
like,
patient for a knockout. Where when he was a little younger, he would be a little bit rambunctious. So I'll give him that. He's patient. Like he'll wait 8, 9 rounds just to hit you right on the point of your chin, and
yep, yep,
he'll give you a more of a false sense of success with him now. Like Avanesyan kind of let him think he was doing a little much, and then boom, he just said, "Okay, I'm gonna let you open up so I can knock you out." So, I have noticed that about Crawford, but Canelo has evolved a lot. Canelo was a guy that couldn't track movers down and stuff like that, and then you look at him. Canelo. One thing I give Canelo for is Canelo took on styles that were really tough on him in his 20s, and it made him a good fighter. Because he did not have to fight Austin Trout. He did not have to
no,
fight Erislandy Lara. Erislandy Lara is a stylistic nightmare for Canelo. He just really is. And the fact that he voluntarily fought him that showed me Canelo's chops. It really did. And Canelo got so much better after that fight. He really did. People say he has slow feet, but Canelo know how to slide up on you. See how he destroyed Billy Joe Sanders. I mean,
yep,
he just destroyed him. He was just another class of fighter that night. And a guy like Billy Joe Sanders would have probably gave Canelo a lot of trouble 6 or 7 years before they fought. But when he fought him, he was ready to seize the moment. He was polished within that style because Canelo's a big puncher and he has that short, squatty build, so guys are gonna move away from him. So he got to a point where he could really handle that. So yeah, the special fighters they evolve in their game. You know what I mean? And guys whose games don't evolve, they need to retire as soon as they start losing their physical ability. And you got to be humble with yourself, though. You have to be humble enough to say, I can't win top level fights um, once I start to slip physically. And some guys can win top level fights when they start to slip physically. Like Ali. Ali was the best heavyweight of the 60s and the 70s because his chin and his mind was so strong where when he lost his legs, he could just he still had a great chin. He still had the know-how. He had the Olympic pedigree. He could just like bullshit his way through a fight and then take you in deep waters and still beat you. With guys like Ron Lyle and Ernie Shavers, huge punchers, he was able to beat those guys well past his prime because his mind was so strong and his
yeah,
ability to adapt. was so high. Larry Holmes is like that. Larry Holmes beat Ray Mercer and gave Holyfield hell as a much older fighter because those kind of styles age well. Where guys like Joe Frazier and Mike Tyson, their styles don't age well. So you got to just know your style and know yourself.
Yeah, but you know what? You know what's crazy to me, and I think he's making a comeback now, and I still don't understand this. So like Floyd, guy who can fight, he probably could still fight. Maybe not now, but he could fight into his 40s and still be one of the best fighters. Manny Pacquiao, I don't think ever was, in my mind, should have never been an older fighter who could beat Keith Thurman or who's going to beat like a Mario Barrios. Like I don't see how he can keep it up at this age and like not get countered coming in the way he does. Like you shouldn't be able to get away with that when you're young. This guy's way too old to still be doing it, and yet every time you see him fight, it works. What am I missing? What is he
He's a,
doing?
he's an outlier, because he doesn't have the kind of style that ages well, but yet he was did some had some huge accomplishments in his 30s. And then Keith Thurman, when I think he was over 40 when he fought Keith Thurman, that's not supposed to happen. You don't
No,
have 40-year-old ex flyweight be elite welterweights in their prime. That's not supposed to happen. Um, sometimes you just can't really explain things with words when you got a special fighter. But listen, we're never going to see a Manny Pacquiao again.
no.
He's a very, very rare fighter. His high energy style is very rare to age well. But the one thing I will say about Manny is Manny developed a lot of subtle boxing skills and defense that people didn't give him credit for. He got to a point where he could really catch punches and deflect them off his gloves, and his feet became more educated as he got older, and he knew how to like feint you and offset your aggression. And another guy that was forged in fire. He fought so many tough guys. Instead of it wearing him out, it made him better because he's seen so many styles. He was used to fighting bigger guys. When you fight the lineup that he fought, with the Marquezes, the Moraleses, the Mayweathers, the Barreras, um, Mosley, Tim Bradley, Miguel Cotto. We talking about Hall of Fame fighters that he's fighting back to back to back to back. When you get in there with Keith Thurman, it's like this guy is good, but I've definitely seen this movie before. I've been in the ring with
Yeah,
better fighters than him. You know what I'm saying? So sometimes the hard competition it could break you and it can wear you out, and sometimes it could forge a fire up under you. Like, man, bro, Keith Thurman is a great fighter, but he ain't better than Floyd Mayweather. He ain't better than
yeah.
Miguel Cotto. He not better than Marco Antonio Barrera. He ain't better than Oscar De La Hoya. So I've seen this movie before. He's a great fighter, but I've been in with better guys than him. And then sometimes the older guys just having his night. You know what I
That's
mean?
true.
That happens too. You know what I mean?
That's
Sometimes
true.
I can go out to a basketball court and hit 8 or 9 out of 10 with my son. You know what I mean? It doesn't mean I can go play in that pro am league right now and at 49, but sometimes you're just having your day. And he was having his day that day. It just, that's how life works.
It's funny you say that because I once played. I had a bunch of friends from work, and they're like, "Hey, man, you want to come, play with us? We're gonna play basketball." I've never been that good. I'm kind of tall, but I'm really not that good. So I'm usually in the hole getting rebounds and stuff. The one time I went to play, it was like you said, it was my night. Everything's swishing. The problem is I can never play again. You know what I mean? You do it one time, and you're like, "All right, yeah, that's me. That's how I play." Good seeing you guys. You can't come back and shit the bed. Excuse my language, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, listen, it happens. I was good when I was younger. So I would go out there. I remember shit, about 24, 25 years ago. Let me see. I'm 49 now. I was about 24, 25. And my friends asked me to play in this league. And it was a competitive league. And I came out and I hit like four threes in a row. I could shoot real good. So I hit about four threes in a row within like 3 minutes. And a lot of my buddies knew me when I was in high school and stuff were like, oh my God, he's back. And I'm like, relax. It's just
Yeah.
one day. Relax. I don't play no more. I'm just getting a flashback. Relax. And that happens with fighters, man. Manny Pacquiao, bro. Manny Pacquiao is in a real good argument for top 20, 25 fighters to ever walk this earth. So he can have a day. Now, I think he's shot. I really do. I see his legs. His legs look all heavy. He's 46. The Thurman fight was like 5, 6 years ago. I don't know exactly, but I don't
Yeah.
know if we can take off 4 years at 46 years old and come back the same. But that's why we fight the fights. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, that's a big part of it too. What are you doing between then and now? I mean, it's one thing you're not boxing, I know, but
Well, you're
like, are you
going out, you're
running?
not boxing. That's the problem because he doesn't know he's coming back 4 years later. So he's probably doing all kinds of things that's counterproductive to boxing. And then now he gotta be it's not gonna be easy. But listen, he's fighting Mario Barrios for a reason. And I like Mario Barrios. He's a great kid. But out of the welterweight champions, if I had to pick which one I would fight Mario Barrios too.
Makes you wonder what came first, the chicken or the egg. You know what I mean? Like he's like, oh, he won a belt. You know, him and all of his, whoever's around him is like, hey, you want to know what'd be cool? There's a guy with a belt right now that's not, like Jaron Ennis. You want to fight him? You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
exactly. Exactly. Now if he was fighting Jerron Ennis, I wouldn't even watch the fight. I'm not gonna lie to you. I wouldn't watch the fight
You feel
because
bad?
he would go to the ER. You know what I mean? But he probably Mario Barrios. So while I think Marios is probably gonna win, I still can say, okay, like Mario Barrios just had a draw with an older guy.
Yeah,
So there is a way that Mario Barrios can lose to Manny Pacquiao. It's not impossible. It's unlikely, but it's not impossible.
yeah,
Pacquiao ain't beating Jaron Ennis. He's not beating Jaron Ennis. Pacquiao will have a hard time beating Jaron Ennis on the best day he ever had in his life, yet
yeah.
alone 46 years old with a 4 year layoff.
It just
So
ain't. Yeah, it's not
yeah,
possible.
it's not gonna happen. But Mario Barrios, I could say, you know what? I like Barrios to win the fight, but I can't see a way Pacquiao got a chance. You know what I mean?
It just
And that's what I want.
depends. You remember when was it during COVID? It was like Tyson fought against Roy Jones Jr. and you saw them each do their little patented move, and you're like, "Oh my god, that is so bad." Tyson did his bob and weave, but it was so slow, and then Roy
But
Jones
listen,
Jr. did his hop, and it's like that is not what that used to look like, man.
but
That looks like me
listen, let me
doing
tell
it.
you something funny about that. Let me tell you something
Yeah,
funny about look how much Tyson declined from the Roy Jones fight to the Jake Paul fight. He didn't
yeah,
even look bad against Roy Jones, to be honest with you. But but his rate of decline was just, I mean, against against Jake Paul, man, he was like fighting his glove. I mean, he was having all kinds of issues going on in there. I'm like, man, I hope this guy's okay. But
yeah.
against Roy Jones, he actually looked pretty decent.
It was. I mean, it's an exhibition. Yeah, I agree. I agree.
I
He
mean,
definitely was
I
less.
consider all of them exhibitions, to be honest. I know it counted on his record, but let me tell you
Yeah,
something. When you fighting with small gloves and no headgear on, and you got to train like that, I mean, anything can. You know what I mean? Like the chances are,
yeah,
you still got to prepare. It is what it is. His form was a lot better versus Roy Jones, but against Jake
yeah.
Paul, it scared me. Like I was getting to a point where I was like cringing because I didn't want to see him get knocked out.
I gotta be honest, man. I was so happy. It's funny. That's one of the only fights I wasn't really thinking about watching, and it's one of the only fights most of the people I know are like, "Are you? You know how it is? Are you watching this one, right?" Who's people who never watch boxing, and it's like they're all like, "So, do you think Tyson's gonna go easy on him?" And I'm thinking to myself, like, I pray to God it's the other way around. I pray that Jake Paul doesn't try to like crank it because he can punch. He's not nothing. You know what I mean? Like he's a decent boxer for a guy who's not a traditional boxer. But like Mike was too old, man. And
Yeah.
he's been punched a lot in his life. Where's his head at that he can take a shot like that? So I was so happy. To be honest, I was really happy that Jake Paul wasn't, trying to go all out. A lot of people, you
Yeah,
might disagree with that. That was my
I
thought.
don't, I do disagree with that. I was happy that Mike
Okay.
Tyson made the distance, but I definitely don't think Jake Paul took it easy on him.
You don't
No,
think so?
no.
Did he
Jake
did he sit
Paul,
down on any of those punches? I don't recall that he did.
well, I think he did. I don't think that he's experienced enough to just sit right in the box with Tyson and knock his head off. Jake Paul moves a little bit and tries to get a little bit of room on his right hand. He was cranking that right hand. It's easy to say after the fight when you didn't knock the old man out that you was taking it
Yeah,
easy on. But Jake Paul is the kind of guy that, he's a new age guy. If he knocks you out, he's gonna laugh at you, he's gonna make fun of you. And I'm not saying anything wrong with that. That's just his personality. He said a lot of crazy stuff to Tyson. I don't feel like he would. Tyson can still punch. And I think that the reason why Tyson went the distance because Tyson got in shape and he was still dangerous. So
yeah,
so Jake Paul said, okay, if I can't just clip him with one big shot, I'm not going to just go in there because that could be dangerous to me. I don't blame him, but I don't think that he took it easy on him, not one bit. Jake Paul is the kind of person that um he likes money. He's a businessman.
yeah.
Knocking Mike Tyson out would make his career huge, even bigger than what it is, and it's huge now. So he doesn't love Mike Tyson that much, where he's going
Nah,
to let him go the distance when this man is in this game. Take Jake Paul is a social media influencer. Jake Paul is a person that moves the needle. He's not stupid by no means. There's no way in the world that he just wants to let Tyson go the distance when he can knock him out and go viral and then and become an even bigger star than what he really is. So fighters talk in a different language. A lot of them, they say things that isn't always exactly true, but I don't believe he got that much empathy in his heart for Tyson of, okay, I don't want to hurt this guy that's trying to hurt me. I don't buy that.
yeah. I don't know, man. When I saw Holyfield, I don't know how old he was when he had his crossover fight with, I forgot who it was. It was an MMA fighter who was a good puncher, and he got clocked. I don't have any interest in seeing that. That was so sad to see that
Me neither.
happen.
Me neither. I don't. I see these guys. They calling each other out all the time, and they just doing all kinds of crazy stuff. Man, when you get a certain age, you're not supposed to be taking punches like that. That's just what it is. You're just not. You're not supposed to be taking punches like that. So I don't. I don't. I'm not a big fan of that stuff. I'll just say everybody got to make their money, and
Yeah.
people have, you know, uh, boxing is a sport with no pension, and the money has to last you the rest of your life. So I get it.
Yep.
Sometimes you go a little broke, and you got to go do what you know. We're not talking about rocket scientists here. We're talking about professional fighters. So when they want to go make money, they got to do what they have to do to support themselves and their family and the people that depend on them. So I'm not knocking it. I'm not a big fan of seeing Asian fighters just come back just you know, uh, for shits and giggles or for pride. Like you got 250-year-old, 260-year-old guys calling each other out. I'm like, dude, like, come on, man. Y'all sound
Yeah.
stupid. Like, I'm not a big
Go for a
fan of
walk
that.
in the park. Be old. Enjoy it. Enjoy being
Like,
60. It's a good time.
I literally was cringing when Mike Tyson was fighting Jake Paul because I was afraid he was going to get knocked out. And I was like, I would turn the fight on I would turn it and then turn it back on, turn it and turn it back on just to make sure he was okay. I've never been more relieved that a fighter didn't get knocked out before in my life. I really was. Like, I had anxiety for Tyson because the last thing I wanted to see was because these new, whatever you call them, millennials, I don't know what they are, but these new guys, they're just disrespectful to
Yeah.
like people. Like, you hear Michael Jordan couldn't do this, and I'm like, bro, if
Yeah.
y'all saw if y'all saw Michael Jordan play, like, dude, be quiet. You never had 10 points in the junior high school basketball game. Do you know how hard it is to get 30 points in an NBA game? Heck, he didn't get 30 points. He averaged 30 points in an NBA game. You got to shut up because you didn't see Michael Jordan. Because if you seen him, you would never, ever in your mouth say that. Got guys, yeah, well, Ali, he was great outside the ring, but I don't know about inside the ring. Bro, he won a gold medal at 18 with no headgear. He won the heavyweight title 3 times. He was the best heavyweight of 2 eras. Not one,
Yeah.
two. He beat 4 people that won gold medals in the pros. Stop it. Y'all guys got to
Yo.
stop. So the last
I
thing I
grew
wanted
up.
with this new generation making fun of Mike Tyson. I didn't want to see that. So I was very happy that he made it the distance. I really was.
You know what that is too. This is my own opinion from what I've noticed is kids these days. It's all in like no more than a minute increments. Attention short. You gotta do something really explosive and quick. You know, you gotta get the attention like that. They don't have the time to sit and let something marinate. So everything is through social media or whatever. It's happening in small clicks. You get one click. You're right about that. Like if you got one click of you knocking out Tyson and then talking, smack to him afterwards, you're gonna get so many views. It's not about the whole fight. It's about that one, image or like 20 seconds. That's a huge part of it.
Yeah, and I didn't want to see that for Tyson. And Jake Paul and them could say what they want, but they would have been blatching that. That would have went viral. I mean, they was already promoting a fight of him beating the baddest man on the planet. Well, the baddest man on the planet was the baddest man on the planet in 1986.
Yeah, 100%. You know what though? I'll say this because someone asked me. They're like, "Does it piss you off? You're a boxing fan, right? Does it piss you off that Jake Paul is getting so big in boxing, even though he's not at the level of the guys that you like to watch?" And I was like, "Well, yes, but I get it because it's just celebrities fighting. Like if I took Kim Kardashian and whoever the big female name is right now and said, hey, they're gonna fight next week, that would sell so many views. They don't have to be good at boxing. It's just that they're famous. You take two famous people and make them fight. It's intriguing. People are like, "What is this?" But I don't know. It's just different. When celebrities fight, that's a fascinating thing to people, and I think that's the draw versus like watching good boxing. You know what I mean?
I agree. I agree. I think you're
Right?
right. I think I
I'd pay
think
to
I
watch
think
a Kim Kardashian fight. Why not?
you're right. Like people get mad at Jake Paul. I don't get mad or happy with it. I just process it for what it is. Like he's a smart guy that sees a certain space in boxing that he could kind of get into and manipulate a little bit. He does have some athleticism. You got to respect the fact that he's getting in the ring because it ain't like he's not getting in the ring. He is fighting the fight. And he's not a great fighter, but he's not that bad either. You know what I mean? He's not like completely awful. So there's like a certain level of guy that he can be competitive with. And because he makes so much money, I always say he got a shot at winning the world title because of how boxing is. If the He can't beat the guy Jai Apatay, I believe his name is. He will hurt Jake Paul.
Oh yeah, yeah. There's no chance.
He has no chance of beating him. But the right guy at cruiserweight wins the title. He make him beat him. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's a certain kind of guy that he can win the fight against. And cruiserweight is a historically bad division. It just is. Uh, and there's certain kind of guys that he can beat. And because he makes the money, he can sort of target one of those guys. He could say to one of those guys, "Hey, bro, I'll give you $10 million. Defend your title against me." Do you really
I
think the
was.
sanctioning bodies are not going to take the money because they will? And there is this now. He did lose to Fury's brother, Tommy Fury. So obviously, I'm not saying he's a great fighter. I'm not, putting him on a pound for pound list or anything like that. But I am saying that the right guy wins the title at cruiserweight. Jake Paul can beat him.
Yeah, it just takes one guy to move up to heavyweight. I think ditch the belts, and all of a sudden you see two guys you've never heard of before. Fighting for the lineal or whatever. And all of a sudden someone gets a belt, and now you got it. It's not like these sanctioning bodies aren't doing some. They might be doing some deals themselves. They don't. They want their
Mhm.
cut on a big fight. I wouldn't
Yeah,
be shocked. Is all I'm saying.
I wouldn't be. People are gonna get mad at that, but you can't get mad. What you have to do is you got to keep your feelings neutral, your opinion neutral. You know what I mean? Like what
Yeah.
Jake Paul eat doesn't make me shit. You know what I mean? Like so, I don't
Yeah.
really like spend too much time hating Jake Paul or like, oh my god, he's not a real boxer. I'm a purist. I just be like, all right, well,
Yeah.
whatever,
But it's got.
whatever floats their boat, whatever. You know what I mean? And again, he is a serviceable fighter. He's not that bad. He has a lot of resources. He can punch a little bit. He seems to train really hard. And the most important thing that everybody forgets, he gets to pick who he fights. So
Oh yeah.
yeah, he was a little miscalculated with Tommy Fury. He miscalculated that. But for the most part, he's gonna beat Chavez up. I'm just telling you, he's gonna beat him up. And then
Chavez
people,
isn't training like that.
yes, he's gonna beat Chavez up. Jake Paul is pretty smart. He's only miscalculated his picks one time. Well, that was the Tommy Fury thing. Other than that, he's picking the exact right guy exactly when he's supposed to fight him. So
Yeah,
boxing workers have to live with it.
yeah. I'll give you. I know you got to get going soon, but I'll give you like one more question. You got this will be a fun one. This will be kind of a tough question. You have two fighters fighting this coming Saturday, right? So the interesting dynamic, of course, is one of them's going into a fight that on paper we all think he's supposed to win. The other one's going into a fight where he might be a little bit of the underdog. One is the bigger headline. Is there one that you get more? I don't want to say this the wrong way, but maybe more excited for? Is there one that you look at and you go, "Wow, this is going to be a big moment," or are they both like pretty equal in that regard?
No, I look at I really have a lot of love for all my fighters. I look at every fight as the biggest one, but I'm no fool. I know that Karan's in a much harder fight than Caleb is, and Caleb's making more money than Karan. I'm not a fool, but that's just the way the dynamics and the logistics of boxing go. You know what I mean? It's a lot of things that could be said about that, but Karan's not mad. He's not jealous. He agreed to come out here and do camp.
Yeah,
Uh, I'm not a fool though. I do know that Karan's in a much harder fight for much less money. But that's how boxing works. You know what I mean? It is what it is. And I'm sure Caleb knows that too. Uh, so it's not about being more happier for the one than the other because I get paid off for both of them. But
of
I want
course.
both of them to win, and I put everything into both of them to win. But I do know that on paper, Karan is in a harder fight. But you got to see how the fights work. You know what I mean? Karan's been like they've been doing that to Karan his whole career. It just is what it is. Black kid from Delaware, you know, wasn't an Olympian. He's going. You get treated a certain kind of way. It's just how boxing works. There's no use of complaining. You just got to just go outperform expectations and keep moving up. And he has a goal to be middleweight champion of the world. And this guy's in the way, and that's just what it is. You can't have a fighter that feels sorry for itself. That's always complaining about the landscape and how it's being done or how that's being done, because that takes away from your fighting spirit. It does. It takes away from your ability to overcome. You're not an arbitrator. You're not a lawyer. You're not a union rep. You're a fighter. So you got to just fight and you got to fight through it if you're going to make it. Because everybody doesn't get treated the same. Marvin Hagler surely didn't get treated the way Oscar De La Hoya did, but they got to the same place, right? So,
Well, that's his story too, man. It's not like it's his first time being there. It's not gonna, what has he done in the past?
how
I think
about
he's
this?
ready.
Let me tell you this. I'll tell you this. He got offered to fight against Ethiosa. I forget the guy's name, but he's the top ranked guy in the IBF. He's a black Italian guy. He's with the same promoter that William Skull is with, right? So we were supposed to fight in an IBF eliminator. So they told me they was gonna work out a deal. So the deal was for us to go to Italy for the same money we made for Elijah Garcia. So I'm like, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
You got to cut weight. You got to go over there. You got to figure out where to spar, where to train for the same money we fight Elijah Garcia. We might as well fight a tough fight here where we at least get our resources, where we at least have the ability to cut the weight properly, to eat the right things, to go through everything we're going to go through. So Karam was happy with fighting the toughest guy that they got coming up, the undefeated Cuban with the 100% KO ratio. He was like, fuck it, I'd rather fight him than go all the way over to Italy where they're going to try to rob me and this guy gonna run around the ring and I gotta cut weight out there and I won't be able to put the weight back on correctly and I gotta go through all of that bullshit for the same money I fought Elijah Garcia for. So
Yeah.
that's the kind of character that he got. He's like, man, y'all can have it. I'll just fight. So they said, all right, we'll put him and Caleb on the same card. I said, cool. We'll take the
Good for
Cuban.
him. Good for
Yeah,
him, man.
so, you know what I mean? Sometimes, man, when you not trying to run around the door and you willing to run through it, sometimes there's a big reward on the other side.